Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Reis-Dennis. I'm the head of podcasts at Audacy. Very happy to be here with Kaelyn and Megan today. Um, I know they were just introduced, so I won't repeat that, but I do want to share that Kaelyn hosts one of our favorite shows, Heart Starts Pounding. It now has 100 million views on YouTube, more than 45 million downloads and views. It there were 1.9 million views on the podcast alone in YouTube in February. She has over 4 million social followers, a billion views across social. So she has really blown up even in the past couple of years since we started working together. And we want to talk today about how she is harnessing that community and how brands are harnessing that community to create something that goes beyond just kind of traditional podcast advertising. So with that, Kaelyn, in my opinion, the best podcasts feel less like programming and more like communities. What are the signs that a podcast has developed something like a community?
I think you really feel like you're building a community when it feels less like you're kind of like this, where it's a one-way conversation. You're talking to an audience, you're giving them information, and you're not really hearing anything back, and you're not seeing the people talk to each other about the thing that you're talking about. And when it crosses over into community, you're hearing more from the audience, and you're also watching them talk to each other about the things that they're listening to on your show. So that's when they start showing up in the comment sections, and they start showing up on Reddit to discuss like a case that I covered. That's when it starts really feeling like, okay, these people are, I don't know, in it for the long haul with the show, and they're loving it, and they feel like they're identifying with something like much deeper in the show rather than just wanting to like listen to it as a casual listener and then jump over to the next show that they're listening to.
And so Megan, from a brand perspective, are you tracking that? Like what are the signs that you look for as a brand that's looking to evaluate a community?
I will definitely search a show on Reddit. I will look at the comments.
Oh no.
They're all good. They're all good. No, I look at both the host behavior and audience behavior. If the host is really connecting with listeners, are they taking listener questions? Are they jumping into the comment section of YouTube if it's a simulcast? With listeners, are they, like she said, commenting on Reddit? Are they following on social media? And then just from like a buying perspective, is it a converted, or is the audience going to convert if they trust their host when they talk about a brand? So I look at what brands are on that podcast, and if it's a direct response brand, and if they are repeat renewals, I will look at that as well and be like, okay, this audience is an engaged audience, because I'm looking at it right from a marketing perspective, and I want them to, or I want to know if that particular audience is going to convert when a host endorse a product.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love that you're in there on the Reddit threads, just like the rest of us.
Even like the snark ones, like I look and like, what are you complaining about with these
Absolutely.
podcasts?
So, Kaelyn, your listener community actually has a name. My understanding is that you named it after a real historical group, the Rogue Detecting Society.
Yes.
So can you tell us about the origin story of the Rogue Detecting Society and how that origin story and history shaped the kind of community you wanted to build? And could we go to the next slide, please? Actually, the next one.
So my show is very, so no, you're good. You're good.
There we go.
And there we go.
That's what it is.
Yeah, so that's the Rogue Detecting Society, and this is very much like the feel of the show. We say following your dark curiosity. So it's a little bit of true crime, it's dark history, it's like the real story behind urban legends. And the Rogue Detecting Society comes from a real thing in my town in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There was no police force in my small town in Connecticut. So my great-grandfather started this thing called the Rogue Detecting Society, where him and a bunch of guys and some girls would get together and solve crimes around town. Like they were who you called or sometimes wrote to come solve crimes. If you were robbed in the middle of the night, they would come figure it out. And at the same time that he was starting this up, he also was a journalist at the local newspaper, and he was bottom of the barrel, 21 years old, was just writing obituaries, because back in the day, the people at the newspaper would write the obituaries for people who died. And he starts noticing that there's a lot of obituaries coming in from this one place in our town. And it's this old folks home. It was the first old folks home ever created in Connecticut. And there's 20 beds at this old folks home, and there's 20 obituaries that show up every year on his desk that he has to write. And he's like, that's high turnover. Like, it's old people that live there, but it feels like a lot of people are dying in this home. And so he kind of starts sniffing around. And the woman who owned it, you know, she was called Sister Amy. She walked around with a Bible in hand, and she preached on the street, and everyone loved her because she was religious and so kind. And no one ever thought that anything nefarious was going on there. But once my great-grandfather started sniffing around, he realized that she was buying enough poison to basically kill a large army of people. And she was sprinkling it in the foods, and she was pouring it in the lemonade at night that she would serve them. And she was a serial killer who lived in my town. They think she killed at least 60 people. And it was only found out because my great-grandfather had that like urge to follow his dark curiosity, which has kind of become the lifeblood of the show. I think that was lore that I grew up with. Like, that's my family lore that was like passed on from generation to generation. And at the core of it, I think is really a person who liked dark things and liked solving crimes and liked really feeling like he was a part of the community and really benefiting the community. And so even though we cover dark subjects at Heart Starts Pounding, I think like the real beating heart of the brand comes from a place of wanting to look out for your community and your neighbors. It's not really like voyeuristic. It's not exploitative. Like, we really want to take care of the stories we tell and like the deep dives that we do. And it's nice to have like that as kind of like the core of the brand.
That's such an amazing story.
Wild.
Oh, it's wild.
It was in your blood to do this.
Yeah, it was.
Truly.
So Megan, I want to actually move to playing a clip of
Yes.
one of the ad reads that Kaelyn did for Aura Frames. And I want to hear from you about how that distinction, that description that Kaelyn just shared about that kind of community and origin story, how that shapes how you invest with a podcast. Maybe let's listen to the clip first, and then you can talk about it.
Amazing.
Does that sound good? Okay. Can you go back one slide?
This episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. Finding the right gift can be super stressful, so let me tell you about the easiest gift I've ever given, Aura Frames. Now, my grandma lives pretty far away. She's also not very good with technology. She might disagree, but she doesn't know how to listen to my podcast, so she's definitely won't hear this. She struggles to see pictures that I even text to her, so it could be really hard to share important moments with her, like my wedding photos or pictures of my dog, Fitzgerald. She honestly wants to see him more than my wedding, which is why I love Aura Frames. You can upload unlimited photos and video remotely from the Aura app. You can even preload photos before it ships, so it's ready to go when your mobile phone gets it. For a limited time, save on a perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get 35% off Aura's best-selling Target mat frames. Named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code HSP at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code HSP. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Wow.
Love
That
you.
code is still valid, by the way. Anyone can use it.
So I guess I want to hear from both. First of all, Megan, like,
Yes.
why does that ad work for you? I know you, hopefully I can share this. You just renewed your investment in Heart Starts Pounding. So
Yes.
why does that work for you? And then, well, we'll start there.
Okay. Personal endorsement. She already has established that she has a strong connection with your audience, and your audience trusts you. And if you are endorsing a product, they want to buy from you because they want to either be like you because you're a role model, or they want to have a good product that their favorite host has recommended, but they also want to support you. You ended by saying support the show by mentioning us at checkout. That's community building. It's being like, you give me free content and I want to help support that free content by supporting you, and I'm going to buy this awesome product.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, this wasn't the first time I think you worked with Kaelyn. You did a whole campaign around Mother's Day. Why do you come back? Why do you continue to come back from one campaign to the next? Haven't you already reached that audience? Why the repeat investment?
I think the partnership between a brand and a podcast is a two-way street, right? Like, I want you to have a great experience with our product, with our campaign. If you ever have any questions, if you want more product, I want you to enjoy the product that you're endorsing. And I want the brand, to get conversions out of that marketing campaign. So it's a two-way street, right? We come back as we build equity within the podcast and within her audience. So, it may not convert for one listener just after listening to one ad. It may take a couple times, it may take frequency. But if we see signs of engagement, we want to come back and continue building equity with your audience, because it's not just building trust then with you, it's building trust. We're building trust with your audience, that your audience knows, okay, Aura Frames is a great tech home product for gifting. And Christmas comes out around once a year. You're always going to need a gift. So, yeah.
Right. So you need to feel comfortable with the audience obviously trusts Kaelyn, and Kaelyn, what makes you comfortable enough to give a real endorsement versus just reading copy?
Well, definitely liking the product. And I was going to say along those lines too, like, I've lived a lot of life over the partnership that we've had with the show. And in this one, I'm talking about sending wedding photos to my grandmother. In another ad read, I talk about sending baby photos to my grandmother. Like, you can hear in the ad read, like, the life that I'm living and how I'm using the product along the way. And that, I think, just feels so much more authentic to the audience versus just, I'm just reading you about Aura Frames this one time. I liked it. I sent it to my grandma. Like, I don't know. I just feel like with especially my audience, because the more I talk about products, the more I hear from them that they actually are buying those products.
And they probably have heard about your pet before. They've heard about your wedding. And so like them hearing that you're uploading those photos, you can see those memories again. That's authentic to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Kaelyn, I mean, your show happens to be quite a big show that also has an engaged audience. So that's kind of a perfect storm for a brand. But how do you think about scale versus engagement overall when you're, evaluating a broader portfolio of opportunities?
I want a good media mix, right? Like, we want those, large reach podcasts, but we also need those niche audiences as well. And honestly, those niche audiences convert more. They want, like I said previously, they want to support their favorite podcasts where they know that this is a job for them. It's not just a pet project. And I'm specifically talking about like celebrity driven podcasts may not have as much engagement or conversion rate, rather, I should say, because they're not as invested in supporting their hosts and shouting out their hosts. Our biggest source of how we view engagement is the how did you hear about us? And so these listeners want to support their hosts and shout them out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've seen across Audacy's portfolio that some of our smallest shows actually have the highest engagement because they might be about a really specific topic that audience is just, obsessed with. So we work with Reality Gaze, and their audience will literally pick up anything. I mean, we did a merch pilot with them, and we made more money on their merch than like really than shows that were 10x their size. Yeah. It's interesting. So let's talk about video for a second. The hot topic. It has been the hot topic. I don't know if it's really interesting anymore, but Heart Starts Pounding started out as an audio show and then decided to embrace video. And you now have a YouTube presence built around a physical set that incorporates the Rogue Detecting Society. It's the Rogue Detecting Society HQ.
Yeah.
So how does that visual layer, in your view, change the nature of the community? Does it expand it? Do you find that YouTube listeners are different than audio listeners?
It definitely expands it. I mean, YouTube has the benefit of having the algorithm. So I think growth is just something that's easier on YouTube in general. But also, like, that photo is what we based our set on. So you really, when you're watching the video, you kind of feel like you're entering the Rogue Detecting Society headquarters with me. And that's just different. I mean, audio is so intimate because it's in your ears. You can take me with you as you're like going for a walk. Like, a lot of people binge the show, so I'm just constantly in their ears. But on video, it's still intimate, but it's a different level of intimacy. And so I guess the audiences are kind of different in that way. I think if you look at the demographics, they're very similar. It's mostly women. It's maybe a little bit younger on YouTube just because in general the audiences are a little bit younger on YouTube, but they feel so similar and they engage with the content in similar ways. Yeah, everyone's just I think YouTube is maybe a little bit more native to like commenting because you can just like it's easy to access the comments versus audio. It's really just Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, you can comment. So it's interesting to see like the community engage in different ways, but I think in general the feel of them is very similar, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And Megan, obviously Aura Frames it's an inherently visual product.
It is.
So how do you think about audio advertising versus video advertising, and when do you gravitate towards one or the other or both?
It's definitely not a requirement when it comes to our podcast advertising. I think it's a benefit. It can be, depending on how the ad is in the YouTube portion. But really, like we were saying earlier, it's storytelling. So you can really describe. Podcast hosts are such creative storytellers that they can really visualize the product for their listeners. So like I said, it can be a benefit, the YouTube portion, but really audio is the most intimate and I think the most converting medium for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a legacy audio company, Audacy agrees. Obviously, video is great, but we see it as an extension, right?
Yeah. That's a good word for it. I said benefit, but I think extensions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about measurement. What metrics do you care about most? I guess that's a question for both of you.
I think when it comes to engagement, the metric, it's not necessarily things you would think of like the quantity of comments or like that traditional engagement of like how many likes did this get? How many comments did this get? But for us, like something that I think about a lot at Heart Starts Pounding is when audiences will pay for things that you're talking about, when they really want to engage with the brand, I guess, how do I say this? Like when they spend money on stuff, because there's so many things that they can go out and watch and they're not like, there's a lot of free content out there. So when someone actually opens their wallet and buys a t-shirt or a book that you're selling or engages even with your ads that you're talking about, like they really trust you enough to be like, okay, I want to spend money on the things that this person is talking about because I really trust them. Or I identify with this brand so much that I want to wear a t-shirt that says it's basically a billboard for them or a sticker or something like that. Metric for me matters so much more because that's how you really feel the engagement of the community. And how like strong your community actually is. So that is the number that I try to make grow, are the people who are willing to kind of like, I guess, financially
Like take action.
engage, take action. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, when I'm considering buying a podcast and advertising, I look at the extension of the podcast. So the merch, do they have a Patreon? If they have a Patreon, that's a buy-in, and so their listeners are definitely engaged and want to support the show. I love looking at not just Reddit, but like YouTube comments and seeing, what the listeners are saying. And then for YouTube, it's nice to like kind of be able to like do a gut check of the amount of views that they have as well. So all those go into kind of like the deciding factor of if I'm going to buy a podcast, all those different metrics.
Yeah. So you mentioned Patreon. I'm glad you brought that up. That's become such an important piece of the community for a lot of our shows. And Kaelyn, we've talked about so you have an Apple subscription component and a Patreon subscription, and each of those groups have their own secret emojis and code words.
Yeah.
So how did that's like another layer of community. How did that develop and why does it matter?
I mean, that kind of started because on Apple, you can't see who is subscribing. So there's people that spend $5 a month to listen to the show, which is amazing. And I will never see their name. What
do they get for that $5?
They get ad-free listening, and they also get a bonus episode a month. And on Patreon, there's 2 tiers, and there's more bonus content for like the higher paid tier. But that's still, I mean, that's a lot of money to spend throughout a year on a show that you care about. And so I want to like give a lot of value to those people. But on Patreon, I can see your email address. I can engage with you in the chat. I can see the comments you're writing. But Apple, I really couldn't engage with that community. So I told them, because you can do specific audio for like that I upload onto Apple. So I was like, if you guys ever communicate with me on the internet anywhere else, like if you're commenting on my Instagram or you're sending me a DM or whatever, like include a little Apple emoji so I know it's you. And they loved it. It felt like we had this secret code. And so then I started kind of like incorporating that in other ways because I was like, oh, this is fun. Like they feel like they have this little like inside joke with you that only you guys know about. And, you know, like the larger community doesn't know that I even put that at the beginning of like the Apple intro episodes. So like little things like that, I think go like a really long way.
No, it's really cute. And it also kind of plays on that Easter eggy detective kind of feeling.
Yeah. And like on my set too, there's like a little glass apple in the back. And that's like a nod to the people on Apple. They listen on Apple Podcasts, so I don't know how much they're watching the YouTube, but like, it's still like a little nod that some people are like, oh my God, I caught that Easter egg. And then,
very Taylor Swift.
Yeah, no, I literally get it from Taylor Swift. I'm like, she's a genius at this stuff. And there's a reason that people engage so much with her and they buy like 700 different vinyl expansions of like the same album. And it is because you feel like you're getting just like a little bit more that someone else isn't getting by engaging in that way. And it makes you feel so much closer to the creator.
So you're the Taylor Swift of podcasts.
That's all I want to be in my entire life.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We're deeming you that right now.
Thank you.
So obviously you really love your listeners. That comes through when you talk about them. Can we go to the next slide? Maybe two from now, another. Yeah. So this is, you've been celebrating your listeners with Listener Appreciation Month, which is so cool. And I would love to learn, like, what is that? Like, what does that mean for you?
Yeah.
And why do you do it?
I mean, there's so many reasons to do Listener Appreciation Month. I think it just makes people feel even more a part of the community, and it makes them feel like I can see them because I'm having them tag, like they take a picture of where they listen to the show and then they tag me in it so I can see. So I'm like seeing people at home. I'm seeing people walk through cemeteries. I told them to make it really spooky too. So a lot of people like went to cemeteries or like broke into a basement at an old hospital and took a picture there.
Kaelyn, what are you asking your listeners to do?
I left it up to them. I didn't endorse any crimes. They chose to commit them. But it's really fun because I can really see what they're doing. And then another thing that we did that I really loved was we did a like small business shout out. So every episode that comes out in March, we're doing a different small business owned by someone in the community. And that's also some of the stuff that I've decorated my set with. There's candles from one company and like 2 hours away from here in Texas that just sent me some candles, and they have a small business and clothes designers and stuff that I wear on set while I'm like telling the stories. And that's just been so fun because I think I've really seen, especially like through partnerships like this, the power that we have with the show to recommend things for people to buy. And so it's really nice to kind of turn that back to the community and say like, you guys like own this candle company and I love it. And I want the community to buy from like this small business. And so that's been another like huge highlight of the month that we've been able to do.
That's really cool. We are going to wrap up soon and turn things over to audience Q&A. So think about that. And before we do that, I want to just end with a quick lightning round that takes us beyond the topic of this panel in the spirit of celebrating the podcast community. We're just going to ask some questions. First, what's your favorite podcast besides Heart Starts Pounding?
Besides.
Which one?
I was going to say besides Heart Starts Pounding.
I know, besides. Yeah.
Besides.
I've been listening to the Lonely Island Rewatch podcast where they go through all the SNL shorts that they did. That's my favorite, I think, besides mine, obviously.
It's kind of similar. So I'm a 90s kid, so I love the show Boy Meets World. So I'm obsessed with Pod Meets World, which is hosted by the stars. And I also like the show Shortcomings. And it's funny, they have a little name kind of too called the Shorties. So I'm a shorty.
Yeah, check that out.
What podcast besides Heart Starts Pounding does the best ad reads?
The Lonely Island podcast. That's why I started listening to it because I heard their ad reads were so good.
They do good for Aura too.
They do a really good job because it's so authentic and they're like best friends, and so they joke around during the ads. Sometimes I'll listen and be like, "Ugh, did the advertiser like this one?" Because you make a lot of jokes about it. But in general, it's an extension of the community. I think the way that they talk about the advertisers, which is great.
An Audacy throwback, Comments by Celebs. One of the co-hosts, Emma, she does an amazing ad reads. You can tell she's smiling in her ad reads, and it's the best. I would buy anything from her, I think. And she genuinely uses the products. She talks about the products in content, which, like freebies, like free advertising from there. So I think she does really, really good ad reads as well.
Okay, I love that. Last one. If you could step in as the host for a day on one podcast tomorrow, what would you choose? And similarly, if you could, for free, be a presenting sponsor for one show tomorrow, what would you choose?
Oh my God, I don't know. That's a really good question. I want to say like Amy Poehler's podcast because she just gets like awesome guests that I want to talk to anyways. So probably that one.
It's a really high bar to be that funny though, but you could do it.
I know.
You know what? I'll go with that one as well for saying sponsor, and we'll sponsor you when you're co-host with Amy Poehler. Let's do that.
Perfect.
Good hang.
Okay, well, that was great. Let's see if the audience has any questions. So you mentioned Taylor Swift as an inspiration. I'm just going to respond. I'm going to repeat what you're saying so people can hear.
Let me bring a mic.
Oh, nice.
Oh, great.
Oh. What are some other ways you search for inspiration or ideas around creating interesting content and making sure that you're constantly leveling up and not plateauing, which is really easy to do in this space? Totally. No, I think I always look to, you don't have to just look to other podcasters and what they do. I think looking at people like Taylor Swift or just other people who are crushing it either with audience engagement or the way they think about marketing themselves or the like branding of their show, I think is something that I'm always looking for inspiration kind of everywhere. And definitely trying to make like a list of like the top performing people in a bunch of different businesses and just like always looking to what they're doing and not just limiting myself to like, oh, what do YouTubers do? Just trying to make it more holistic, I think. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hey there, thanks for being here. I wasn't familiar with Heart Starts Pounding before this, and it's a really cool world. I'm curious what your production team looks like and how many people you have behind the scenes, what kind of work they're doing, and how you use that, leverage it.
My husband works on everything with me full time, and then we just hired an associate producer, and so it's the three of us that are full time. And then on post, we have contractors. We have a sound designer and a YouTube editor. But in terms of the actual like physical production, it's just the three of us.
3 people, that's small. Cool.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
really small. I wish we had more. That would be so helpful.
Any other questions? Yeah, back there in the yellow.
Hi, I'm David Patrick. We do Dads on Books, where we read books that our kids have read. We're very small. We're just starting out. We've been dropping for about a year. And I thought of this idea. I love the idea of hosts doing ads. And there's certain products that I love as a stay-at-home dad. And I thought I might reach out to some of these companies and say, we're small, but I love your product so much. Any advice you would give to me or other podcasters like us to get a start, no matter how small we are starting out?
Do you want to take that, Megan?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just said, letting the brand know that you love their product, I think that's the best step because that's really going to lead to a great ad read and some conversions, I think, with your audience. And I think we as brands really appreciate when hosts love our product and we don't need to really even educate them. And it makes our job easier where you know how to use the product. And I really think it helps ad reads as well to sound really authentic.
I mean, worst that could happen, they don't respond. And maybe they'll send you some free product, even if they don't want to advertise in your show yet.
Yeah, it
Never
sounds like
hurts
you have
to ask.
a really specific audience too, which advertisers really love. So if you can show the ways that your audience like really engages with you, because that's like maybe an audience that not a lot of other shows tap into. So I think a lot of places like to buy really, really niche shows like that. That's like catering to dads and first-time dads and stay-at-home dads and like dads that will buy these products. So you have a lot like working in your favor, I think.
Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for being here. I know it's the end of the day. It's hot. This was a lot of fun, and we're happy to hang out and answer some questions. If you want to say hello.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leah. Thanks, guys.